Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this information session for the Dance Advancement Fund application. My name is Maya Seuss. I'm the Grantmaking Manager here at Dance.NYC. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently in the Lower East Side of Manhattan in Lenapehoking. I'm a middle-aged white woman with long, dark, wavy hair and bangs. I'm wearing an orange shirt with a buttoned-up collar, salmon lipstick, and orange and white spotted dangly earrings. Behind me is Dance.NYC's background that fades from a red-orange in one corner and all the way to a dark purple in the other. ASL interpretation for this webinar is being provided by Jennifer Smith and Aisha Simpson on behalf of SignNexus. Closed captioning is being provided by Nicole Wilhelm of the Viscardi Center. A link to the captions can be found in the chat. To pin our ASL interpreters, you can click on the dots in the right corner of your video screen to pin. To provide a brief visual description of this presentation, the title slides are dark pink with centered white text. All other slides include dark pink headings and black text on a white background. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. The webinar recordings and slides will be made available on the Dance Advancement Fund Get Help page on Dance.NYC. In grounding us in the present and deepening the roots of our work, I'm going to read Dance.NYC's land acknowledgement, and we can take a moment to center ourselves in this space together. The practice of recognizing our country's violent history and its legacy in the space we occupy has been developed with the guidance of Indigenous dance artist and activist Emily Johnson, and more recently, River Whittle, to ensure that we embody this allyship. This includes taking actionable steps towards reparations in this initial instance by nurturing relationships with local Indigenous and First Nations artists and organizations. Dance.NYC would like to acknowledge that the City of New York is located on stolen land, more specifically Lenapehoking, the traditional territory of the Lenape people, who are also recognized federally as Delaware Nation of Oklahoma in Anadarko, Oklahoma, Delaware Tribe of Indians in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, the Stockbridge-Munsee Band of Mohican Indians in Bowler, Wisconsin, and in Canada, the Munsee-Delaware Nation in Munsee, Ontario, Delaware Nation in Moraviantown, Ontario, and Delaware of Six Nations of the Grand River in Oswego, Ontario. The Lenape people are the original inhabitants of this land and gave Manhattan Island its name, Mannahatta. Dance.NYC recognizes that as an organization based in New York City, we have benefited and continue to benefit from this systemic displacement and subsequent erasure of Lenape people and governance. Today, we are working to first ensure we learn and research best practices for acknowledging the land we occupy. Second, move beyond acknowledgement and into needed reparation and equality and equity. Dance.NYC committed to making concerted efforts to collaborate and make pathways for Lenape artists and leaders to return to Lenapehoking today. To join us in this work, we encourage supporting Lenni Lenape Exquayok, a group of Lenape matriarchs from 5 of the federally recognized Lenape tribes who are working to increase Lenape presence in Lenape land, both immediately and long-term, and we'll drop their website in the chat. With this acknowledgement, we also name the legacies of the African slave trade, the current violence against migrant and immigrant communities, the disability rights and disability justice movements, and the LGBTQIA+ fight for queer and trans justice. With all of this in the room with us, we take a collective moment of silence and breath. We recognize that within each of us, history is present and future. Thank you. So I'm going to pass it over to Dance.NYC's grant-making assistant, Ariana Allen, to go over what today's webinar will cover. Over to you, Ariana.
Hello, my name is Ariana Allen, and I'm the grant-making assistant here at Dance.NYC. I use she, they pronouns, and I am a biracial, non-binary woman with curly dark hair. I'm wearing brown glasses, a white button-down shirt, and silver earrings. Behind me is Dance.NYC's pink and orange gradient background. The purpose of this webinar is to support applicants in successfully completing the expression of interest and application for the 5th iteration of the Dance Advancement Fund, or DAF. We'll go over guidelines for this webinar before moving into a brief overview of the program. We'll review eligibility, evaluation criteria, selection priorities, and grant awards. We'll review the program timeline, go through both the expression of interest, or EOI, and the application process. We will show a brief demonstration of the EOI in Submittable. We will conclude with a brief question and answer session. To review our guidelines, please mute yourself if you are calling in. Dance.NYC has muted all participants. Please submit questions when they occur to you using the chat feature. We'll answer as many as we can at the end during the Q&A session. When you submit questions, use the Chat to Everyone feature so that everyone else can see questions being generated to avoid duplication of questions. All questions are being captured. Please ask general questions, not questions specific to your organization or group. Please do not use the Raise Your Hand feature. And now I'll talk a little bit about the history of this fund before handing it back over to Maya, who will tell us more about the program and review the application process. The Dance Advancement Fund was established in 2017 to address the inequitable distribution of resources in the dance field and advance its resilience and thriving by supporting dance makers in the metropolitan New York City area. As of 2026, the Dance Advancement Fund has distributed over $2.25 million in general operating support to 112 unique dance-making organizations. On April 15, 2026, we announced this 5th iteration of the fund, which is made possible by the generous support of the Howard Gilman Foundation and the Ford Foundation. This iteration of the fund is a reflection of ongoing learnings from current and past grantees, field partners, Dance.NYC's task forces and committees, field research, and current events impacting the field. Dance.NYC is also working in collaboration with Naya Nicholson as program consultant for this iteration. Naya is the founding executive director of Move NYC and a nonprofit consultant who helps visionary creatives and transformational organizations deepen their purpose and expand their possibilities. You will meet Naya shortly. Before Naya walks you through the application, let's review the eligibility requirements. Applicants are eligible to apply if they are a dance maker focused on the creation and/or performance of dance with a history of at least 3 years of local dance-making activity in the New York metropolitan area. They are headquartered in the metropolitan New York City area, including the 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as Nassau, Rockland, Suffolk, and Westchester counties in New York State, and Bergen and Hudson counties in New Jersey. Applicants are eligible to apply if they have an annual expense budget between $25,000 and $250,000 for fiscal year 2024 actual, fiscal year 2025 actual, and a forecasted budget for 2026. And applicants must be able to provide proof of current 501c3 status or fiscal sponsorship status. Applicants are not eligible to apply if they are a current grantee of the Howard Gilman Foundation, they are an individual dance maker without a fiscal sponsor, they are an organization and/or group headquartered outside of the metropolitan New York City area, defined as the 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as Nassau, Rockland, Suffolk, and Westchester counties in New York State, and Bergen and Hudson counties in New Jersey. They are an organization and/or group with fewer than 3 years of local dance-making activities in the metropolitan New York City area. They are an organization and/or group whose primary focus and/or mission is not focused on the creation and/or performance of dance. They are an organization for which dance therapy is a primary function. If they are an educational institution, a producer, a presenter, a festival, or a service organization. Please visit the Dance Advancement Fund eligibility page on Dance.NYC's website to further explore the eligibility requirements. Passing it back to you, Maya.
Thanks, Ariana. In making the final selection, thank you. Sorry, let me go back to that again. In making the final selection, Dance.NYC is committed to building a grantee pool that authentically reflects the full diversity of New York City's communities. Demographic representation is a core selection criteria, not as a checkbox, but as a meaningful step towards repairing historical gaps in arts funding. This commitment is informed by Dance.NYC's 2023 community census, which surfaced long-standing structural inequities in the dance ecosystem, the underrepresentation of artists of color across the workplace, the near exclusion of disabled artists from funding and professional spaces, and the economic barriers that have made sustained dance careers especially difficult for immigrant artists. In response, grant selection will apply weighted priority to applicants who demonstrate to the review panel that their work and leadership reflect communities that have been systemically under-resourced, including, but not limited to, a diversity of dance perspectives, dance makers headquartered in the Bronx, East Brooklyn, Northern Manhattan, Queens, Staten Island, Nassau, Rockland, Suffolk, and Westchester counties in New York States, and Bergen and Hudson counties in New Jersey. Organizations and groups artistically led or otherwise creating work by African, Latinx, Asian, Arab, and Native American or ALANA artists, and gender nonconforming, non-binary, and transgender artists, as well as disabled and immigrant artists, as well as dance makers who work closely with local communities, dance makers with a sustained artistic practice spanning between 10 to 19 years, and organizations or groups who have limited access to financial resources, specifically private philanthropic support and public funding through government agencies. Also, dance makers working in underrepresented dance styles or genres, and first or second time Dance Advancement Fund or DAF awardees. Grant awards will be general operating support grants of $6,000 to $40,000. And Dance.NYC plans to award 25 dance-making organizations, totaling about $650,000 in awards over a 2-year grant cycle. Awards will be paid in 2 installments, one in the fall of 2026 and one in the fall of 2027. In addition, grantees will receive professional development support in the form of online webinars, small group programs, and in-person cohort gatherings, as well as goal-directed one-on-one coaching with professional nonprofit consultants who will support grantee infrastructure and sustainability goals in the areas of visioning and strategic planning, fundraising and resource gathering, marketing, storytelling, and communications, fiscal management, or general administration and operations. This iteration of the Dance Advancement Fund application process is 2-tiered. The first tier of the application is the expression of interest, or the EOI phase, which we are currently in. The EOI will be open until June 2nd and will be a way for Dance.NYC to determine applicants' eligibility for this program. After Dance.NYC reviews all expressions of interests, or EOIs, eligible organizations will receive invitations to submit a full application for the Dance Advancement Fund. This process will run between June 30th and August 4th, 2026. Grantees of the previous iteration, or the 2024 to 2026 cohort of the program, will automatically be invited to the next part of the application and not required to submit the EOI, inasmuch as they are in good standing and in alignment with program goals and management. So let's take a closer look at the upcoming timeline. The EOI opened on April 15th and is scheduled to close on June 2nd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dance.NYC is hosting EOI virtual technical assistance sessions on Mondays and Fridays through the EOI period. And you can sign up for one at the DAF Get Help page on our website. Once the EOIs have been vetted for eligibility, eligible organizations will receive invitations to submit a full application for the program. The full application will be made available on an invite-only basis. There will also be virtual technical assistance sessions available in July 2026 for support in completing the full application. Applications will be vetted internally in September. Eligible and complete applications will be sent to panelists for review, and in October, grantees will be announced and the first installment awards will be dispersed. The complete timeline for this program is available on our website. You can find all details on the fund page on Dance.NYC's website and also on submittable.com. If you don't already have a submittable account, you will need to create one in order to submit your application. Dance.NYC estimates applicants may need approximately 1 hour to complete their EOI if they have required information readily available. If you do not have the required financial documents at hand, it may take a little longer. We have worked to make this expression of interest form simple and accessible to all. I'm now going to pass it over to Naya Nicholson to lead us through the application process. And while she tells you about it, you'll see on the screen the EOI form in Submittable. There will be orange and black text over a white background, and the screen will roll through the content. Over to you, Naya.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naya Nicholson, and I am thrilled to return as program consultant for the Dance Advancement Fund. I use she, her pronouns, and I can be described as a brown-skinned Black woman with red hair. I am wearing a long sleeve purple top with Dance.NYC's pink and orange gradient background behind me. We will now review the expression of interest, EOI, step by step, with the hope that you feel really good about submitting a successful application by June 2nd. We want to emphasize that EOIs submitted after June 2nd at 11:59 p.m. will not be considered. So please take notes during this session, ask questions, and sign up for technical sessions prior to the due date and time. Okay, here we go. The expression of interest contains 4 sections, including an eligibility determination. As an overarching note, all questions are required unless otherwise indicated. So questions with a red asterisk indicate the question is required. Please also note that as you complete the questions chronologically, more questions and upload fields will populate based on your previous answers. To view all the questions that will appear in the application, please refer to the EOI guide on the DAF Get Help page on Dance.NYC's website. The EOI guide is also available in Spanish and Chinese. Let's walk through it. So, in the first two sections, you will be asked to provide basic applicant information. So that's your contact information, the address for where your organization is headquartered, your organizational mailing address, which must be based in the metropolitan New York City area. You will be asked to confirm your county, your New York City City Council district, and the year your organization or group was founded. You will also be asked to provide your mission statement, your projected budget range for 2026, and list whether you are a nonprofit or fiscally sponsored, with the latter providing the name of the organization that you are fiscally sponsored by, as well as their federal EIN number. Moving on to the financial and governance section, you will be asked to attach financial document information pertinent to your tax classification that shows a detailed budget. Let's dig into that. So if you are a 501c3, you will be asked to provide audited financial statements, ideally for 2025, or if you do not have an audit, you should upload either your most recent Form 990 or a 990N, also known as an e-postcard, along with, so if you're submitting this 990N, we also need your organization's budget, and it needs to be signed by your board treasurer. If you are a fiscally sponsored organization, you will be asked to provide financial records, such as a 990, again, ideally for 2025, or alternative financial records that demonstrate your 2025 finances, such as quarterly finance, balance sheets, profits and losses statements, or other documentation of your group's financial standing. You will need to upload documents that show your budget for 2025 and that it's over $25,000, or for 2024 if you haven't received your 2025 audit yet. And we need you to break down your income and your expenses when you're uploading that budget. The final section of this portion of the application contains a series of optional questions with regards to your application process that will help us continue to make our grants and applications better for everyone. We also give you an opportunity to be added to Dance.NYC's mailing list to receive updates on our programs and activities. The only required part of this particular section is the confirmation question. So you want to make sure you click that. That indicates that you affirm that the information you provided is true and verifiable to the best of your knowledge. So as a refresher, in order to successfully submit your expression of interest form by June 2nd, you must show that you are either a 501c3 nonprofit or are fiscally sponsored by including an EIN tax number and listing the name of your fiscal sponsor. If you are deemed eligible, at the application stage, you will be asked to upload a proof of fiscal sponsorship from your fiscal sponsor. And it is required to upload those financial documents and to clearly outline your income and expenses. So before we move on and talk about Tier 2, the full application, we'd like to just pause here to see if there are any questions in the chat or if anyone would like to come off mute. to ask questions about the expression of interest.
Thank you, Naya. And you can just drop your questions in the chat if you have any. I see one here, the question from Rosie. Is a company eligible if the lead choreographer has been creating work as an independent artist in New York City for over 3 years, but their company has only been formed under its current iteration and name for 2 years? You can email us to confirm, but I'm pretty sure that that is would mean that your company would not be eligible. Many of us are independent artists before we maybe create an organization or become a group. We are going to be funding the group. So unfortunately, the group that's applying would have to have been founded or in working in the New York City metro area for 3 years. Thanks for the question, Rosie. I'm sorry it wasn't a different answer. There's another question in the chat. Does founding date mean date of incorporation as a nonprofit? No. As stated, as Naya shared in going through the EOI, you can be a fiscally sponsored organization or group. And so perhaps you will have worked as an independent group and have a fiscal sponsor before you become a nonprofit yourself, and your founding date would still have been prior to 3 years, and you would have been making work in New York City and the New York metro area for over 3 years. I hope that answers your question. Another one here. Can Fractured Atlas be my fiscal sponsor? The answer is yes. They are a great fiscal sponsor. There are many small nonprofits who function to support other small groups and organizations by acting as fiscal sponsors. And I'm not sure if we have that link available, but we do definitely have resources to share regarding where you can look for a fiscal sponsor. Any other questions before I pass it back over to Naya to walk us through the second stage of the application? Thanks for that link. That's great. There's a fiscal sponsorship resource page that was just dropped in our chat. Okay, so I'll pass it back over to Naya to take us through the second stage of the DAF application.
Thank you, Maya. And thank you all for your great questions. All right. So as Maya said, we will now do a top-level review of the next stage in the process, which is the full application. After June 2nd, our staff will review the submitted expressions of interest for eligibility and send invitations to all eligible applicants to complete the second stage of the application, meaning that the full application will be open on an invite-only basis. While the application won't be open for submissions until June 30th, we will be making the application questions available for your preparation, planning, and review by the close of the EOI on June 2nd. The application guide will include all of the same questions that will appear in the application and will be found on the DAF Get Help page on the Dance.NYC website. So the second stage of the application will consist of 6 sections. Again, all questions are required unless otherwise indicated. Questions with a red asterisk indicate that the question is required. And similar to the EOI, more questions and upload fields will populate as you complete the questions chronologically. Incomplete applications will not be considered. You can save draft content by scrolling to the bottom of the application form and clicking Save Draft, and then return to finish the form at any time prior to the deadline. Of course, we always recommend that you write your answers in an external document and only copy and paste them into the form. So let's walk through these 6 components. In the first section, you will be asked to provide your banking information, background on your organization, which includes company history, mission statement, and a description of your artistic lineage and creative context. In the second section, you will be asked to provide work samples for the review panel to assess the artistic merit of your work related to your planned use of funds. Specifically, you will be asked to submit either 3 minutes of video or 3 minutes of video and up to 5 images, or 10 images and no video. You can upload image files and a video file. You can also submit a video URL. For sample guidelines on how to improve the accessibility of your work samples, we ask that you visit the Dance.NYC webinar facilitated by Laurel Lawson. You will also submit a work sample description where you list relevant details about the work samples submitted. On to the third section. You will be asked to provide a statement on your planned use of funds, and this is really important, and the potential impact of this grant and enhancing the quality of your dance making, both internally and externally. In addition, you will be asked how you plan on measuring the impacts of your use of funds for reporting purposes. So really spend some time to think about how impactful these funds can be to catapult you even further into your mission and your great work. In addition, as a part of the DAF grant, grantees will receive professional development training and opportunities throughout the duration of the grant period, which is so exciting. This application section will ask that you indicate the 2 top areas of growth or organizational challenges that you would most benefit from in receiving support from a consultant or coach during this grant period. Additionally, DAF will include 1 mandatory grantee orientation webinar and a series of grantee cohort convenings focused on professional development and community learning. You will be asked to provide a confirmation that you understand submitting a DAF application entails you fulfilling the requirement to attend the mandatory webinar and make the best effort to participate in all grantee cohort convenings. When the review panel evaluates proposals, they will consider the role historically under-resourced groups, including disabled, Alana, LGBTQ+, gender non-conforming and/or non-binary, and transgender and immigrant artists play within the applicant pool and wider dance fields. As such, the next section focuses specifically on diversity, justice, equity, and inclusion. You will be asked to provide a statement on how your organization values diversity, justice, equity, and inclusion, and how it relates to your organizational mission and dance making. You will be asked to provide examples of how you demonstrate these values in practice, what audiences, communities you choose to engage in your work. In addition, you will be required to submit an equity matrix, and we'll give you that template, that gives you an option to tell us more about your organization. Lastly, you'll be asked to report how your group or organization applied and integrated best practices for accessibility for your dancers and the public. So a lot of pulling apart in this area, and during technical sessions and when materials are shared, there'll be examples that you can pull from if you have questions about how to form your statement. Please know, the information you share will be kept confidential to the full extent of the law. De-identified data may be published to our website and may be used for future research for reporting purposes on the impact of this grant program and or other Dance.NYC research. Data will be presented only in summary form, and your name will not be used in any report. Please note that while Dance.NYC will keep your information confidential, there are some data security risks inherent in providing information via the internet. We'll now move on to Section 5. The fifth section contains financial and governance material questions. Applicants will be required to fill out a financial information form, which Dance.NYC provides, that reports budgeting information on income and expenses for both the forecasted fiscal year and actual fiscal year. Then you will be asked to provide information on any anticipated or confirmed funding sources by name and amount for 2024, 2025, and 2026. This includes private foundational funders and public governmental funders. Lastly, this section will ask you to report on any investigation you are currently under by any government agency. You will be required to confirm that you will notify Dance.NYC of any suspicion or debarment from participation in any governmental contract by any governmental department or agency in the U.S. will be reported during this grant term. The sixth and final section of the application contains a series of optional questions with regards to your application process. We also give you an opportunity to opt in to receive notifications via email about Dance.NYC's activities. The only required part of this section, once again, is that confirmation section, that button where you agree that by submitting your application, you affirm that the information provided is true and verifiable to the best of your knowledge. Whew. So that completes our overview of both stages of the Dance Advancement Fund application process. As a reminder, the expression of interest portion is due by June 2nd at 11:59 p.m. The office closes at 6 p.m. The application is due at 11:59 p.m. And only groups and organizations deemed eligible will be invited to complete the application, the full application. Invitations will be sent out on June 30th. Now I'll pass it back over to Maya and we can open the room to any questions.
Thank you so much, Naya. That was a lot of information. Please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I do see one here from Kyla asking, do we need to write about our program proposal on the EOI? And there's no place for a proposal. There is space for your mission statement. So I'm going to turn this over to Naya, actually, if that's okay with you, Naya, to answer about a little bit more about the writing about their actual organization in the EOI.
Yes, thank you, Maya. And you already started on a good start that yes, you will be filling in information about your mission statement, which should include, your what and your operations and your activities. It should address that. And if you have any questions about crafting it, because you want to make sure that stage one is as strong as possible, we do have technical sessions on Mondays and Fridays. Please sign up. I would love to talk to you about the work that you're doing.
Another question just popped up. Are there any restrictions on how to use the funds? Great question. So the funds are general operating, and you will be required to fill out a final report and an interim report. So you'll be telling us about the work that you've been doing, but we're not going to be asking for any receipts or any particular outlining of where those funds directly went. It's general operating support for your dance company and your organization or group. So there aren't any particular restrictions on those funds, knowing that they are going to support the work that you're doing. Any more questions? Can funds be used for rehearsal space? Great. So we will be, as again, I'm just going to repeat myself in terms of general operating support for an organization, perhaps renting space. If you don't have your own location, your own home base, then that's going to be part of what your company needs. So yes, the funds can be spent for the space that's needed for your dance workers to make the work. So yes, part of general operating. Yeah. How do we determine how much an organization receives? So again, we have eligible organizations whose budgets are between $25,000 and $250,000 a year. The grant amounts are between $6,000 and $40,000, and it's a multi-year grant. So we have an internal calculation to determine how much each organization, but as you can compare those two ranges, the dance companies with smaller annual budgets will receive a smaller overall grant. I hope that answers that question. Could the funds be used to support international dancers and New York City dancers? That's a great question. Naya, I'm not sure if I can answer that exactly. I need to, basically it's for you to support your dancers that are dancing and serving the New York City area. We understand that organizations within New York are going to tour. So of course it is to support, again, their general operating funds. So this is different than a program specific grant where you're saying we would like to do this work and a funder funds you for that specific work. This is general operating support for your organization. So if you need to pay your dancers from some of those funds, that is important. In terms of the specific tax classifications of being able to pay international dancers, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. If we have anyone else from our organization who is on the call right now who could answer that, but feel free to please email us at our email that we're going to drop in the chat in a moment, the Dance Advancement Fund email, and I can make sure to get a clear answer for you there. And there's a question here from Irene that Brenda answered, pay artists for rehearsals, and an unequivocal yes is the answer. So again, general operating support is there for your company to be able to do your best work, sustain yourself, hopefully thrive as well. And there are all kinds of costs and expenses that come along with being a company working in the New York City area. Thank you, Nadia, for dropping in. Dance Advancement Fund at Dance.NYC is our email, and I look forward to receiving that question, and I will get back to you with a specific answer. Any other questions? Feel free to please drop them in. Just give it one more beat. And then I will turn us back over. Oh, Irene, your group has 3 branches. Do you want to, is that Do you want to? Okay, so actually, I would recommend that you send us an email just because, as Ariana noted, general questions are great so we can share this out to everyone, but specifics we might need to touch base with you individually. So I encourage you to send us an email, or you can join one of the technical sessions, sign up for that, and we can walk through some of your questions more in detail. I'm not totally sure if I understand your question, Irene. Can I use grants from all in the budget? I would encourage you to reach out directly, and we can go into your specifics a little bit more in depth. Great. Okay. I'm going to pass it back over to Ariana, and Ariana is going to take us out to the end of this webinar with some resources. Over to you, Ariana.
Thank you, Maya. We hope that this webinar has helped you better understand the application process. If we haven't answered your questions today, please visit our Get Help page and review the EOI guide and FAQ page. The application guide will be released at the close of the EOI on June 2nd. If your question is not posted on the Frequently Asked Questions page, you're welcome to email us at danceadvancementfund@dance.nyc. As mentioned, we're also offering virtual 30-minute technical assistance sessions. You can sign up to receive one-on-one support, including but not limited to answering questions about eligibility. You can find the link to book a technical assistance session on the Get Help page. Please register for only one session, at least 2 business days in advance. ASL interpretation or closed captions will be available upon request at the time of registration. If you anticipate needing any of these services, please register at least 5 business days in advance. An additional support resource is our professional development webinar series. Dance.NYC has partnered with Nia Nicholson and Laurel Lawson to provide a series of recorded professional development webinars intended to aid applicants in developing their application materials for the fund, as well as any other application processes. Dance.NYC recommends all applicants review the webinars prior to completing their application. All webinars include closed captioning and ASL interpretation. You can find the links on the Get Help section of this fund on our website. Thank you for tuning in to Dance.NYC's webinar on the 2026-2028 Dance Advancement Fund. Any resources shared today will be posted on the program's webpage on Dance.NYC. And thank you again to our ASL interpreters from Sign Nexus and our closed captioning providers at the Viscardi Center. Thank you, and have a beautiful day.